removal is a whole subject all in its own, isn't it? There's so many different ways, especially as women, that we can remove our hair. You can wax, you can shave, you can pluck, you can epilate. My sister had laser treatment, which is supposed to be permanent. She had it to her underarms. It was quite painful and quite expensive. And after 2 months, the whole lot just grew back in. Which is terrible, but does go some way to explaining why James Bond was always so nonchalant when a laser was aimed at his cock and balls. Come back in a couple of months, man, I'll be champion. Realise I've made James Bond a Geordie. Maybe that's the future. Few cheers for a James Bond that's Geordie, how nice. But according to women's magazines, there are only 2 options for hair down there for women. One of my friends said to me recently, she said, you know why women are supposed to have hair down there, don't you? And I said, is it like your nose, so you don't get muck up it? And she said, no. She said, women are supposed to have hair down there so that nature knows where your reproductive bits are. I said, why does nature need to know? Surely as long as me fella's got a rough idea. Why do all the deers and the rabbits need to know? Well, maybe the rabbits. But I was going to say I worry about me weight, but not enough to do anything about it yet. Although I did, I bought a cross trainer, but apparently that's not enough. Just to buy it. Although to be fair, it's in the spare room, and whenever friends stay over, I have to move it into the hall, and then back again, and I break a sweat, and I think, ooh, it's paying for itself. I think the problem is just the fact that I eat whatever I like and I don't give a shit. Some people who are very similar to me, and you're just... It's probably the longest their mouth's been open without some fucking food in it. Exactly the same as me. It's a fucking hobby. No, I think because I was in a restaurant with my friend and I said, I like it in here because they've got multicoloured food. And she said, I think you'll find they're called vegetables. A friend of mine said, your skin's nice. I said, thank you. She said, can I ask a question? I said, sure. She said, do you use fillers? Now, I'm about to tell you something that you might find a little bit disappointing in me, because I said, yes, it's true, I do use fillers. They're not the traditional kind. I call them cakes and pies. I put poison in your face when you could put lovely things in your mouth. Just don't understand the logic, I really don't. I do like to buy skincare. I refuse, however, to buy anything that calls itself anti-wrinkle, because I myself am not anti-wrinkle. I've got wrinkles, I'll get more, it's absolutely fine. I'm not going to spend 30 quid on something that reckons it stops fucking time. I'm not doing that. I buy moisturiser for the same reason we all buy moisturiser, because isn't it nice to feel a little bit slippy before bedtime? The last time I bought skincare, the website I bought it from said, because you've spent over X amount of money entitled to a free sample, choose one of the following things, we'll send it on. Great, I love a freebie. The one I chose, though, was purely out of curiosity because it was called Youth Serum. And I thought, what the fuck is Youth Serum? Are they going to send me the skin of a child to lie over my own? And then I thought, what if it looks like teddy bear ham? I fucking love teddy bear ham. And then I thought, how youth are we talking? Am I going to get pulled over by the police while I'm driving my car? And they're going to go, how are you driving this? And I'm going to go, I'm 47, I'm just covered in teddy bear ham, look! But also, Youth Serum to me sounds too much like teenage boys' jizz.
Your sheets are covered in Youth Serum, Jamie, you dirty fucking bastard.
I imagine there's factories, just teenage lad lined up after teenage lad, just cracking one out to a catalogue. But I went into Marks and Spencer's recently to try some clothes on, and the same thing happens that always happens when you try clothes on in there. The lady took the clothes off us that I wanted to try on, she hung them on the rail, she gave us the tag, she swished the curtain, all very normal so far. But as she swished the curtain, her parting shot, she said, just give us a shout if you need any bigger sizes. So I swished it back just as quickly and went, I think you'll find you mean different, you bitch. But while I was in Marks, I went to the lingerie department. In the lingerie department, they had a stretchy, lacy, all-in-one kind of body stocking type of thing. presumably for sort of sexy time. I can't imagine any actual practical use. Maybe straining vegetables. And on the bottom of the packaging it said, "One size fits most." That clearly used to say fits all. You've got to pity the poor woman who had to go in and go, "You need to change your packaging, pet. It doesn't fit all. It's still on one leg." But according to women's magazines, there are only 2 options for hair down there for women. The options are all off or most off. Give us a cheer if you think all off is the way to go. Is that a fella in the middle of that there? It's not technically aimed at you, love. I suppose it is good to know we've got a paedophile in. That's what it means, that's what it means. Give us a cheer if you think most off is the way to go. Still quite a lot of you left, isn't there? Can only assume that the rest of you are like me. I just try to keep it in me pants. Even if sometimes that involves tucking it in. But surely the most ridiculous of all of the things we are supposed to do to ourselves is anal bleaching. Now, some of you might not know what that is. If you don't know what it is, it's exactly as it sounds. Some people, and I don't know why, I can't answer that question for you, some people choose to have their arseholes bleached. As far as I'm concerned, regardless of your gender, regardless of your sexuality, if somebody is so close to your arsehole that they can see the colour of it, they're not going to stop. This is never going to happen. Smack! Smack! Oh, sorry, love, I don't do that colour. But I know getting older is no plain sailing. I know that there are problems along the way. One of my friends is in her 60s. Have we got any women who are 60 or above? Give us a cheer. A few of you, so maybe you can vouch if this is true or not. One of my friends, she's 62, and she said, "There's something I need to tell you." I said, "That sounds really serious. Is it serious?" She said, "Well, I just don't want it to come as much of a surprise to you as it did to me." I said, "OK, well, you better tell us what it is then." She said, "When you get to my age, down there, instead of it being a lovely, healthy pink colour, I could have walked away right then and there. Whatever you've got, I don't want to know. Instead of it being a lovely, healthy pink colour, it's more of a slate grey." It's the detail that I love. She didn't say grey, she said slate grey. Like she'd had the Dulux colour chart out. Here, Terry, look at that. Do you think that's thunder or slate? I was so horrified by what I just learnt that I blurted out, "You mean like when meat's on the turn?" Does that smell all right to you? There'll be a few handbag mirrors coming out when they get in tonight, I reckon.
Thanks for watching. You know what would be great is if you liked and subscribed. I'm so needy, I'm so sorry. And why not come and see me live? And the tickets are available at sarahmillican.co.uk. Put the kettle on and settle in.